They don't fear your weakness. They fear what happens when you stop feeding it. They don't want you steady, clear, or untouchable. They want you scattered, running in circles, distracted by endless noise. They want you scrolling for hours, begging for meaning in places that were designed to starve you. They want you reacting instead of creating, chasing instead of building, doubting instead of deciding. Because the man who learns to master his own focus becomes a danger they cannot contain. He doesn't need to shout. He doesn't need to fight for attention. He moves with precision, and precision terrifies them more than rage ever could. Because rage is predictable, but clarity is lethal. A man who is no longer baited by noise becomes ungovernable. Machiavelli once understood what most men today have forgotten, that all power begins in the silence of attention. Attention is the root of influence, the soil where every victory grows. Where you place your gaze, your mind, your hours, that is where your empire will rise or fall. The more you care about their opinions, the more you are owned by them. Every time you bend your thoughts to their approval, you give them the strings to your mind. But the more you withdraw your gaze and guard your path, the more they bend to yours. Because a man who is not swayed becomes the axis others must rotate around. This isn't just philosophy, it is combat. The battlefield is invisible, but the wounds are real. Every pointless argument, every distraction you entertain, every shallow trend you follow, it doesn't just waste minutes. It bleeds you of power drop by drop, until, without realizing it, you become noise yourself. The world doesn't mute you. You drown in your own scattered attention. That's why focus is not a luxury. It is a weapon. The sharpest blade you will ever wield. And you must pull your energy back, not with desperation, not with anger, but with ruthless strategy. You must treat every distraction like a thief, every interruption like an enemy, every wasted hour like a betrayal. Let them react. You remain still. Let them shout. You listen. Let them waste breath. You calculate. Focus isn't exile, it's sovereignty. It is ruling your mind before someone else writes your script for you, before their chaos becomes your identity. And if you are done bleeding your strength into the hands of fools, then say this to yourself: my silence builds my empire. Because from this moment forward, your attention belongs to you and you alone. Understand this. Distraction is not harmless. Distraction is a smiling assassin, patient, polite, dressed in convenience. It doesn't rush to kill you, it wears you down, slice by slice, until there is nothing sharp left in you. The strongest weapon of this age does not come as a sword, it comes as a notification, a headline, a meaningless argument, a flash of envy dressed as entertainment. They don't have to chain you, they only need to keep you scrolling. They don't have to silence you, they only need to keep you entertained. Because a distracted man never becomes dangerous. A distracted man never builds. A distracted man dies standing, consumed by noise he thought was harmless. Machiavelli warned, the one who rules the people rules their minds first. Today, minds are not shackled with iron, but with algorithms, cheap rewards, and endless loops of false urgency. The bars of this prison blow. They hum. They vibrate in your pocket. And every time you chase another notification, another opinion, another dose of approval, you fracture yourself. You don't just lose seconds, you lose sovereignty. You scatter pieces of your mind until there's nothing left to build with. Your strength becomes crumbs. Your focus becomes ash. The world wants your attention cheap, disposable, traded for noise. Your task is to make it priceless, untouchable, more costly than gold. Guard it like a citadel. Let no enemy in. Cut away what drains you, even if it once made you laugh, even if it once felt like connection, even if it still whispers that it matters. Because real power doesn't need to be broadcast. It doesn't beg to be seen. It needs only to be concentrated. It hides until it strikes, and they will not understand. They will say you've changed, that you've become cold, that you've grown distant. But what they really mean is you've stopped being available to their chaos. You've cut the leash they once held. You've begun to build in silence. And silence is the most terrifying sound to those who thrive on noise. Solitude isn't weakness, it is refinement. Power is born in the hours no one sees, in the silence no one applauds. The world celebrates the man who is everywhere, loud, visible, accessible. But it secretly fears the one who vanishes only to return sharper, harder, unrecognizable. Isolation is not retreat. It is regeneration. It is the forge where you burn away weakness. While they broadcast their every move, you disappear. While they talk, you study. While they chase validation, you build leverage and silence. Every moment alone becomes an investment. Every hour in the shadows, a weapon being sharpened. If you feel the pull to vanish, to evolve, to walk away from the noise, honor it. Do not fight it, because every second wasted explaining yourself is energy stolen from your becoming. A king does not argue with peasants. A builder does not explain the blueprint while the foundation is being laid. You owe no one a roadmap. You owe yourself evolution. And remember this, the first to react always loses. The strong do not flinch. They do not rush. They do not show their cards. Weak minds reveal themselves with every outburst, every complaint, every defensive explanation. They bleed their power through their emotions. The powerful wait. They calculate. They observe. They let others drown in their own storms while they remain the calm at the center. When people cannot provoke you, they cannot control you. When they cannot predict you, they cannot plan against you. Stillness becomes threat. Silence becomes confusion. The most feared man is not the one who shouts, but the one who watches and does not move. The one whose restraint becomes unbearable. The one whose patience is mistaken for inevitability. That is the man they whisper about when he leaves the room. That is the man who conquers without ever raising his voice. Here lies the truth. Leverage is everything. The man who learns to focus on himself becomes the man with control. He doesn't need to dominate the room with noise. He doesn't need to prove himself with volume. He dominates it with patience, with discipline, with information gathered in silence. With data he quietly collects while everyone else is desperate to be heard. While others spill their secrets in the name of attention, he listens. While they reveal themselves in search of validation, he watches. Power does not lie in fairness or in noise, it lies in control. And control belongs to the one who reveals the least and calculates the most. And the cruel truth is that people only respect what they fear losing. Their admiration is shallow, but their fear of loss is deep. You cannot teach them loyalty. You can only bind them through the quiet awareness that crossing you comes with a cost. When you become the man who cannot be manipulated, who does not beg for approval, who can walk away without a word, you become untouchable. Presence becomes leverage. Absence becomes leverage. And leverage bends the world to you. But beware the trap, the desire to be seen. Most men confuse attention with power. They think being noticed makes them strong. It doesn't. It makes them predictable. The spotlight is not a throne, it is a cage. Validation is a leash, disguised as applause, likes, compliments. It does not choke you. It seduces you. It makes you dance for crumbs until your soul starves while your ego feasts. A man who needs to be seen has already surrendered. His worth rises and falls with the crowd. He lives like a puppet, strings pulled by opinion. One insult can ruin him. One silence can destroy him. That's not power, that's slavery. The real strength is in becoming undeniable without asking to be noticed. Build in silence. Execute without broadcasting. Grow without their applause. Let your results arrive like storms, sudden, undeniable, inescapable. The man who doesn't need to be seen becomes the ghost in their system. Present but unreadable. Still but terrifying. They cannot anticipate him because they cannot define him. He doesn't explain his moves, he lets the results speak when the time arrives. He is not consumed by the need to be heard. He consumes through inevitability. That is what they cannot control. And none of this happens without discipline. Discipline is your fortress, your shield, your foundation. Motivation is nothing mere sparks that die in the wind. The powerful man does not wait for sparks. He builds fire from stone. He builds his life on systems, on cold structures, on decisions made in advance. He doesn't ask if he feels ready. He decides to be ready. He doesn't negotiate with laziness. He doesn't flirt with distraction. He treats time as a currency too expensive to spend cheaply. Every hour is accounted for. Every task is a brick. Every routine a wall between him and mediocrity. And behind those walls he sharpens himself. Freedom without structure is an illusion. True sovereignty is order. Order is the invisible hand that bends chaos to your will. It is the reason armies obey commands. The reason empires endure, the reason kings are feared. A man without order is a man owned by impulse. But a man who builds order into his very blood cannot be broken, because while others drift, he advances. While others beg to be seen, he becomes inevitable. Discipline isn't glamorous. It's not for applause. It's repetition until resistance breaks. It's rising before the world wakes. It's training not for aesthetics, but because weakness is a liability. It's planning not for productivity, but because chaos is the tool of the powerless. And here's the hidden truth. Once people realize you don't waste time, they know you won't waste power. That is when they fear you not for what you say, but for what you consistently do. To all of this, you must add the sharpest edge of all, detachment. The most dangerous man in the room is not the loudest. He is the one who feels deeply but shows nothing, the one who sees everything but gives nothing away. Emotions are not the enemy, but emotional reactivity is. The moment they know how to trigger you, you've already lost. The detached man carries his emotions like concealed blades kept sharp. but never displayed. They scream, he listens. They insult, he calculates. They provoke, he stays still. And nothing terrifies manipulators more than a man who cannot be read. This is where solitude returns, not as loneliness, but as fire. The world fears silence because silence forces you to face yourself. But solitude is not abandonment, it is rebirth. In solitude, the noise falls away. Distractions die. Lies are stripped bare. And all that remains is the raw self, the uncomfortable truth you've been avoiding. That truth is the blueprint. That truth is the beginning of transformation. Most men never face it. They run to noise, to people, to validation, and that's why they remain weak. But the man who embraces solitude emerges forged, refined, untouchable. And when you re-emerge after this silence different, colder, sharper, they won't recognize you. They'll whisper. They'll speculate. They'll try to provoke the old version of you. But that man is gone. He died in the fire of discipline and rebirth. What remains is a presence too still to be read, too focused to be moved, too sovereign to be owned. And this is the final blow. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't even need to be understood. Your very existence becomes the storm. They expected you to explain, but you returned silent. They wanted you to chase, but you walk away. They hoped you'd break, but you evolved into something beyond their reach. This is the only revenge worth having, becoming unrecognizable to the very people who once thought they knew you. So remember this, power isn't in noise. Power isn't in validation. Power isn't in performance. It is in focus guarded like treasure, discipline lived like a creed, detachment sharpened like a blade, and solitude embraced like a throne room. Become the man who disappears to evolve and returns unrecognizable. Become the one they cannot provoke, cannot predict, cannot manipulate. Because when you no longer need them, you rule them,